Hi, this is X, and this is the Candid Frame YouTube channel. Now, today I want to talk to you about color. Now, I know that all the images that we produce from our digital cameras are automatically color files, but what I want to talk to you about today is the role of color in our photographs. While all our images start off as color, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're really taking a look at the role of color in the success of our photographs. I think it happens just sort of an afterthought. There are some pictures that we take where color is the subject matter. There's like a blue door next to a yellow wall, and that contrast of color becomes the subject matter. That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about color as an element in our photographs, just as important as focus, as overall composition, contrast, lighting, pattern, all the things that we've talked about before. Rather, the color as a sort of as an accent or a character in the makeup of our shot. And I've chosen several examples where we really can see that. Here's this shot by Helfgott, and she made this image with a Canon 5D Mark III at 1/100th of a second at f5.6 at ISO 100. So we have a street scene. This is a familiar scene to me in Hollywood, where we have this red wall with what I believe is Japanese script on the wall. And this is a place I've stopped before to try and make a photograph, and largely it's been photographs of people walking by this red wall looking for something that might complement the script and the colorful red wall. Here, Holly lucked out with this Jeep that was parked right next to it, and you couldn't ask for a better color for a vehicle to be parked against this wall. The contrast between that blue and the red has this energy to it. There's a vibrancy as a result of the color contrast that's created. This image is a street scene that it's not just about the color, because we have these other elements in the shot, including the woman running towards the left. We have the tree. And I think that color here is playing a role. I think this is one of those shots where you could say that it's really about the color, but I think it's also about the shape and the patterns that exist within the shot. Sometimes you can take a look at an image and just take the color out of it, and then you can just sort of judge whether does it stand up when the color is removed. And this is a shot that I think, in terms of a graphic nature, we would have some really interesting elements, but I think the color really elevates it to a whole new level. And I think you'll see that in a lot of the pictures that I'm sharing today, that the relationships between the colors is as important as the relationship of the vehicle to the wall and to the woman and to the tree. When we're composing shots, we're often thinking about the physical things that are within the frame and thinking about the relationship that each has to another. But what I want to suggest to you is to think of color in the very same way. Think about the relationships of color to one another and how they help build and strengthen or even weaken your composition. Here's a shot by Per Stubler. There's no technical information on the shot here. And we have this, what looks like an office scene, and really late in the day. And you have this sort of nice cobalt blue sky. And then you have this sort of yellow light coming in through the office windows as a result of the artificial lights that are within the building. And this is a pretty ordinary scene. And again, it's a shot that would probably look kind of interesting as a black and white. But the color makes it and transforms it into something completely different. Again, it's the relationship between the yellow and the blue, not only in the sky, but in the lower part of the frame here, which it looks like the simple pathway. But look how the paring down of the colors is so important here. We see a lot of shots where there's reds and there's blues and there's purples and there's green and there's a whole wash of color, to the point that the images become really distracting and you really don't know where to look look first. And sometimes those images can work. But one of the things that I like to do is I like to pare things down, especially when I'm trying to use color, trying to minimize the color palette. Because sometimes if I minimize the color palette, I'm more in control of how the relationships of one color to the other color or colors helps me to build a successful photograph. I love the yellow and the blue here. I'm not sure exactly what the artificial light sources were in the building. It looks like they're fluorescent lights, despite the fact that we're getting a really strong yellow cast. I don't know if Pear may have adjusted that later in Photoshop, or whether that is just due to the artificial light sources that are in there. But whatever the reason, that contrast between the yellow and the blues adds this energy, adds this sense of mystery to the shot that I think works really, really effectively. And graphically, it's a wonderful shot filled with nice contrast and repeating pattern that works really effectively and builds on and gets enhanced by the presence of the color. Here's a shot by Hafizal Islam, shot with a D3100, shot at 1/80th of a second at f11 at ISO 200. Now, this shot is really about color, and the subject complements it. I think in the other shots, you could say that it was about the overall scene. The like in the office shot, that it was about this sort of graphic repeating pattern, and that the color contrast there sort of complemented here. But I think in this shot, it's really all about the color. The gesture of the woman as she's making her way through this mustard field is important, but I think for me the color here is what drew the photographer here as the true heart of the image. And the fact that she's wearing this red dress with this complement of green and little pinks and yellows and dark blues, all of a sudden just make this whole image just vibrate with energy. Think about this image as a black and white. If you look at this image as a black and white, then it's all about the gesture. It's all about her moving through this field, the shape of the basket, the sort of triangular shape that her arms create in this part of the frame. This expanse of yellow and green really wouldn't be as important here, other than this sort of repeating pattern that serves as a backdrop. But with the color image, it really becomes about the color, and that the gesture and her body language and her placement within the frame is sort of a secondary element that reinforces the presence of all the color. It's sort of a backwards way of thinking in terms of how we usually use color. But I think it's a wonderful example of how you can go back and forth between making your color your main subject, or a complement to the overall, a complement to a shot where it's more about the graphic nature, the composition, or the gesture in this case. Here's a shot by Sergio Lopez, shot with a Ricoh GR, and it was shot at 1,000th of a second, f5.6, ISO 200. Now, this is a shot that I know would work really well as a black and white shot, because the composition, the juxtaposition of these two men as they're working, the graphic lines that exist, these strong diagonals, it's and the lighting, of course, which is absolutely phenomenal. But the color here is wonderful in terms of those red shirts against that blue sky. This is a shot where I think everything is really equally balanced. We have great light, we got excellent contrast, we got good composition, we have a graphic lines that lead us towards the center of the frame, and then the color is sort of like the cherry on top of everything else. It isn't a shot that's about color, though color is a big element here, but it's one of those things that plays a role. It's kind of like an ingredient in a cake that you're adding to the mix in order to make everything come off successfully. You take away the color, it's still a good shot. You add the color, it becomes an even better shot. It's that little accent. It's that little something something that can elevate a shot into something that's really, really remarkable. I mean, there's a lot to like in this shot, as you no doubt can see. But the color here is something that really makes me love the shot even more. And again, like some of the other shots, we're really paring down the range of color here. We have those reds and blues that are really dominant, but you'll also see little hints of yellows and sort of some dark blues, and we have the whites of the trucks and things like that. But there's such small elements within the frame. There's even what looks like a little pink in that basket that man in the center of the frame is carrying. But we have some dominant colors and we have some secondary colors, but nothing that's really distracting from the main heart of the image, which is that vibrance between the red and the blues. And that's just wonderful. This is just a great capture. And lastly, we have this image by Vinnil India, shot with a D7000 at 1/2500th of a second at f4.2 at ISO 320. And again, think about this image in black and white. Here we would have a really strong graphic shot with this bucket of water being used to wash the truck, and we have the gesture of his body, the gesture of this kind of S-curve that's created by the splash of water, the repeating pattern on the side of the truck. As a black and white, this would be a really good shot, but add the color and it ends up being a kind of sweetener to the entire image. Yes, color is an important part of the shot, and some people would say that this image is all about color, but I think it's building on what I think are already really strong bones. You know, the overall composition, the light, the contrast, all of those things are really shaping this image to be a really strong photograph. And the color, when it's added here, becomes the thing that really takes the shot over the top. Imagine if that bucket were another color, if it was just black or something like that. The pop that we get from that yellow bucket being right there in the middle of the frame, it just would lose it because our eyes just gravitate there. And look at how the yellowish water, the yellow bucket, the yellow highlight on the truck, the yellow script on the back of his t-shirt all play, complement each other against that vibrant blue of the truck and the sky. And you can also say that some of the sort of the muddy rustish color of the wheels and the gas tank there also have sort of hints of yellows. But again, we're paring down the color palette. We're not dealing with a lot of different colors. It's like a handful of colors, and they're all playing off against each other, making the shot that much more effective. And I think that when you go out and shoot, it's important to, yes, pay attention to the light, pay attention to contrast, pay attention to your focus, to your overall composition, but also start making color a more important part of what you look for when you look at a scene. And we always talk about what you choose to include in your frame and exclude from your frame. Well, I think you should think the same way in terms of color. If you see a scene and you have all these different colors, how can you pare those colors down so that your subject, your scene, your setting can make the most out of that color and make your shot and that composition that you produce from those relationships of those colors that much better? I mean, these are really good examples of shots that can really teach you how to see in a very, very different way that'll make you a better photographer. I think as you take a look at a lot of the images that are in the Flickr pool right now, you'll see a lot of color images, and some of the images really make great and effective use of color. And learn from those pictures, learn from those photographs, because when you go out there and it's your time to shoot, those photographs, as you trained yourself to really look at them and evaluate them, are going to help you when it comes time for you to start making your own compositions and looking at light and looking at how color is going to play a role in your photographs. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to contribute to the Flickr pool and you haven't joined us, all you need to do is go to the Candid Frame Flickr pool and ask to be added, and I'll be glad to do so. And your image may show up in one of these videos that I try to produce each week. And If you found us for the first time and you've never heard of The Candid Frame, well, you can go to thecandidframe.com, where you can hear interviews with some of the world's best photographers from all genres of photography, from fashion to street photography to landscape and so much more. So go to thecandidframe.com and check it out. So thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next time.